From the very beginning, my dad hated Ethan. I wish there was a softer way to say that, but it's the truth. He never gave him a chance. Never smiled, never asked him a real question. The very first time I brought Ethan home for dinner, my dad spent the entire evening staring at his plate or throwing passive-aggressive remarks between bites. It wasn't the usual overprotective dad thing. No teasing, no awkward, "So what are your intentions with my daughter?" type jokes. It was cold, measured, personal. I remember asking my mom afterward if Dad was just in a bad mood, and she gave me that careful look she always did when she was trying not to pick sides. "Your father has strong instincts," she said. "Maybe he's just being cautious." But cautious felt like an understatement. Over the next few months, things got worse. Whenever Ethan came over, my dad found an excuse to leave. If I mentioned Ethan in conversation, he would change the subject. One time, he flat out said, "I don't trust him," with no explanation. I asked him why, begged him to just explain what it was about Ethan that bothered him, and all he said was, "Some people aren't who they pretend to be, and not everyone deserves a second chance." That confused me more than anything. As far as I knew, Ethan had never done anything wrong. He was smart, funny, thoughtful. He worked hard. He treated me well. My friends adored him. My mom even liked him, although she never said that out loud in front of my dad. Ethan noticed, of course. He tried to brush it off, but I could tell it hurt him. "He doesn't even know me," he said one night after we left my parents' house. "He doesn't ask anything, doesn't talk to me. He just decides." And he was right. My dad never asked Ethan about his family, his job, his childhood, nothing. It was like he'd made a decision from day one and never looked back. Still, I tried to keep the peace. I balanced family dinners and date nights, kept conversations surface level, and hoped that time would soften whatever wall my dad had built. It didn't. 2 years passed, and things stayed exactly the same. Until one Sunday afternoon, something shifted. Ethan and I were helping my mom clean out the garage. She was preparing to downsize the house and wanted to start clearing old boxes. My dad wasn't home. He'd gone to visit a friend, which felt like a small gift, finally a chance for Ethan to help without tension in the air. We were sorting through boxes labeled old paperwork, tossing what we didn't need, when I found a dusty cardboard container tucked under a shelf in the far back corner. It didn't have a label, just old, faded duct tape holding the top shut. Curious, I opened it. Inside were stacks of old photographs, envelopes, and a small, leather-bound photo album. I flipped through it absent-mindedly until a single photo made my heart skip. It was old, maybe from the late 90s. 5 people stood by a dock near a lake, smiling. One of them was my dad, noticeably younger, but unmistakably him. His arm was around a woman I didn't recognize. Next to them stood a guy who looked exactly like Ethan. Same eyes, same smile, same way of standing. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Ethan noticed my face and walked over. "What is it?" I handed him the photo. "That looks like you," I whispered. He took it, stared at it for a moment, and then I watched all the color drain from his face. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice flat. "It was in that box," I said. "Why? Is it you?" He looked down again. And that's when he said something that changed everything. "Yeah, that's me. And that's your dad." And I never thought I'd see this again. I just stared at him. My fingers clutched the edge of the photo like it might explain something if I held it tight enough. "How do you know my dad?" I asked. My voice was calm, but inside, everything was spinning. Ethan didn't answer right away. He sat down on the floor, legs crossed, photo in his hand. "I didn't know he was your dad," he said slowly. "Not until I met him and saw his face. I didn't understand. But you recognized him." "Not right away," Ethan admitted. "At first, he just felt familiar. I thought maybe we'd crossed paths before. It wasn't until I saw that photo of your family in the hallway, your dad holding you when you were little, that it hit me." I tried to breathe. "So you knew who he was, and you didn't say anything?" Ethan nodded, eyes still on the floor. "I was afraid. I didn't want to ruin what we had. I didn't want you to think I came into your life for any other reason. But how do you even know each other?" I asked. "What happened between you two?" He finally looked up. "When I was 19, I dated your Aunt Cassie. That name hit like a slap. My dad's younger sister. She passed away a few years ago, after battling an illness in private for a long time. She'd always been kind to me, quiet, soft-spoken, never talked much about her past. I met her through a summer job, Ethan continued. She invited me up to the lake house, your grandparents' old place. That's where I met your dad. He was protective, even back then. He didn't like that I was with Cassie, thought I was just another kid messing around. But Cassie and I were serious. We were together almost a year, and then it ended badly. He swallowed hard. What do you mean badly? We got into a fight, he said. I found out she'd been hiding something. She thought I was going to leave her. And I did, but I didn't do it right. I just left a note and disappeared. I was stupid, immature. I thought I was protecting both of us from something worse, he exhaled. Your dad never forgave me. He told me if I ever came near his family again, he'd make sure I regretted it. I leaned back against the garage wall, the cold concrete seeping through my shirt. My mind raced, connecting dots I didn't know were there. It made sense now. The immediate hatred, the icy silence, the refusal to give Ethan even the benefit of a doubt. To my dad, Ethan wasn't just some guy dating his daughter, he was a ghost from the past, someone he thought he had banished for good. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked. I thought it didn't matter anymore, Ethan said. It was 20 years ago. I figured your dad wouldn't even remember me. And when I realized he did, it already felt too late. I stayed quiet. I didn't know what I was feeling. Anger, confusion, betrayal, all of it maybe. And underneath it all, sadness. Because suddenly I realized this wasn't just about my relationship with Ethan, it was about my relationship with my father, a man who had been carrying a grudge for decades, who chose to protect the memory of his sister over the possibility that people could change. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about every family dinner, every awkward silence, every warning my dad had given me that I brushed off. Trust me, he'd said once, looking me dead in the eye. There's something about him you don't know. And he was right. There was, but not in the way I expected. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house alone. My dad was in the backyard, trimming the hedges like it was any other Tuesday. I stood there for a moment, watching him work, wondering how many memories he'd buried just to keep our world intact. He looked up and saw me. Hey, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Something wrong? We need to talk, I said. And I could see in his face he already knew what the conversation was going to be. He didn't say anything at first, just nodded once and led me inside like he'd been waiting for this moment since the day Ethan first walked through our front door. We sat at the kitchen table, same spot where he used to help me with math homework, same seat he always took on Sunday mornings. Only this time, the space between us felt colder, heavier. I placed the photo on the table, the one from the lake. I know, I said quietly. He told me everything. My dad didn't flinch. He glanced at the picture, then looked back at me. I figured he would. I studied his face. He didn't look angry, just tired, like a man who'd carried a secret long enough to grow weary of it. Why didn't you ever say anything? I asked. Because I knew you wouldn't believe me, he said. I knew if I told you who he really was, what he did, you'd think I was just being overprotective. So I kept quiet. I tried to trust that maybe he had changed. But I couldn't unsee what I saw back then. People grow, I said. They make mistakes. They regret things. He shook his head. He didn't just make a mistake. He walked away from someone who loved him and never looked back. And my sister paid the price for that. She never got over him. You know that. My throat tightened. Cassie's final years had been quiet, withdrawn. I'd always thought it was because of the illness. I never knew there was a heartbreak buried underneath it all. So this is about loyalty? I asked. You couldn't forgive him because of her? It's about who he was, my dad said, and how I swore to myself I'd never let him near someone I loved again. But I love him, I whispered, and he's not that 19-year-old kid anymore. My dad looked at me, really looked at me. His eyes were full of something I couldn't name. Pain, maybe, or maybe fear. That's what scares me, he said, because you're too much like her. You give everything, even to the people who don't know how to hold it. That hit harder than I expected. Because it wasn't just about Ethan. It was about me, about who I was, and about how he saw me. I stood up. You don't have to like him. You don't even have to forgive him. But you don't get to decide who I give my heart to. He stayed seated. He didn't argue, just nodded once. I know, he said. I lost that right the moment you became your own person. And then, softer, like something he almost didn't want me to hear. I just didn't want to lose you too. I walked to the door, then paused. You haven't lost me, I said. But if you keep holding on to the past like it's all you've got left, you might lose both of us. That was the last time we talked about it. He didn't come to the engagement party, but he sent a letter. It was short, careful. I don't agree with your choice, he wrote, but I trust you'll make the right one for yourself. That's all a father can do in the end. Ethan and I got married last spring. My mom came. My dad stayed home. Sometimes I catch him looking at photos from the wedding on my mom's phone. He doesn't say much, but I know he's watching. And maybe, just maybe, in his own quiet way, he's letting go. Ethan knows not to push. He's never asked to see my dad. He just holds my hand a little tighter on the days I come back from Sunday visits with that look in my eyes. And me? I've learned that love doesn't always come wrapped in approval. Sometimes it comes with a scar. Sometimes it carries a memory that doesn't belong to you but still shapes the way people see you. I may never fully bridge the space between the two men I love most. But I've stopped trying to make them understand each other. Now, I just try to understand myself, because in the end, the only story I can truly write is my own.